Look, the cuts are going to have a significant impact on our students in school, and that's why we're here, that's why we're fighting this.
It horrifies me, the thought that educational assistance there, for example, might be withdrawn. Our students really need them.
I've been working in education for 15 years. These are by far the worst things I've ever seen in my time.
We need to support the teachers and our students.
The President of the State School Teachers Union of WA and Gisborne.
Thank you. For many months here in WA, as across the nation, we have been dreaming of a Gonski world, one which responded to the proposition that as a first world nation, we were clearly not investing sufficiently in our kids, in their future, in our nation's future. One which would open up opportunities for all of our school communities to create even better learning environments that you guys provide as we speak, for the thousands who come to us. One which would see a significant injection of funds to our schools. There would be a commitment to a 6-year cycle for funds and an indexed annual budget. This was to enable longer-term planning, smaller class sizes, upskilling of staff, purchase of resources and equipment, employment of extra staff such as psychs and attendants and transition officers and EAs and AEIs and AEIOs and ethnic communicators, and the story goes on. Hopes, dreams and aspirations we had, and now this has all gone up in smoke. We here in WA have been struck 3 blows. We have lost the Rudd Gonski funds of $671 million. We've had our state education budget slashed. And as of Friday, we heard the Abbott Gonski funds have withered on the vine. And further, we know that more cuts are on the way in 2015. How is it that our government expects our schools and our communities and our school leaders and our teachers and our support staff to respond to the needs of an additional projected 18,000 students by 2015, with a freeze on teacher numbers, because that's what they've told us, no more teachers. The real reason Premier Barnett did not sign up has now become abundantly clear. He didn't want to have to meet the requirement to index the education budget by 3% per annum over the next 6 years because he was intending to launch a raid on Education Department's budget, gouging funds from all schools, nipping and tucking from almost every element of funding flowing to schools, a long service leave tax, 30% off SPRA, 500 EAs and central and regional office staff blithely wiped away from the department, cuts in teacher numbers, we estimate at the moment from what we can do are over 500, removal of administrative time and planning time for level 3 classroom teachers. Our kids are expected to pay for his monumental, literal and metaphorical indulgences and mistakes. Elizabeth Key down there. Stadiums over there. Mismanagement of James Point. The Muja Power Station losses. I am angry. Are you? Yeah. I feel betrayed on behalf of our kids and our schools. Do you? Yeah. And why? Because he lied to us during and before the March election. His education platform was nothing but a hoax. Last week, Premier Barnett tried to name and shame principals, arranging to have displayed in the West a list of 100 schools and their bank accounts. This act was both shameless and low. It provided no explanation of what these funds might be used for, no redress for the principals in those schools, and in fact, if they had responded, we'd know exactly what would have happened to them. I say to you, Mr. Premier, we will not abandon our children and young people as you seem to be prepared to do. I say to you, Mr. Barnett, We will not let your government bury the hopes and aspirations of the children and young people in our schools beneath the foundation of Elizabeth Quay and the football stadiums. I say to you, Mr Barnett, we will not allow you to compromise our professional integrity. I say to you, Mr Premier, we will not stand by and be complicit in this dastardly and cynical funding con. I say to you, Mr Premier, we will be here day after day, month after month, right up to the next state election if necessary, fighting for funding justice and a fair go for the kids in our public schools. Premier Barnett, Mr Collier, Coalition Government MPs, how dare you give away the rights of our children to a quality education and a future of opportunity and optimism? How dare you?
I represent the Primary Principals Association, and let me state that when the SSTU, CPSU, CSA, United Voice joined forces with the various principal associations, WACSO, school-based boards, councils, P&Cs, parents and concerned community representatives with a common message to all politicians: stop making cuts to our public school system. As an association, we looked at the promise of Gonski and have been very disappointed. We looked with great hope and still remain somewhat hopeful with the TEAS report. We want the TEAS report implemented in its entirety, not some bastardised version that covers up the reductions that we're looking at. And so, as the universal provider of education for all students, regardless of their backgrounds, the supporter of all families, regardless of their circumstances, we must maintain what we have, a world-class education system. And we will join you, fighting in the ditches if we have to make sure that we don't cut into things like our reserves, which are money given to us, funds given to us to look after student education, not to cover up leave liabilities that should have been dealt with over the last decade by the appropriate bodies. So our short message is this: the Primary Principals Association, and I guess the other associations, join the SSTU in condemning the cuts we're confronted with. Thank you.
I come from the goldfields, so I have to mention what we call the LANs. The land schools, which is one big school out there in the desert and is about the area of Victoria. Another group of students with enormous needs. Well, shame on you, Mr Barnett. They are going to lose $2 million. They don't know at the moment even how they're going to pay their petrol bill. I work with 2 EAs, and we have trained those EAs in phonological awareness. So they are involved in a student intervention program in our school. And I also work in that program. Next year, there is a big possibility at least one, but probably 1.5 of those EAs will not have a job because our SPRA money has been cut. These students need phonological awareness. Most of them have hearing problems. And for an example, the Year 2 children that I am working with at present cannot hear the second sound in a word. So when I ask them to spell spin, they spell sin. And Mr. Barnett, when you spell spin, I hear sin. Mr. Barnett and Mr. Collier, put our kids first and stop this madness. You are playing with the future of our state. You are playing with the future of our kids.
If you take those EAs out, it makes teaching every day harder for that teacher. It makes learning every day harder for that kid and every kid in that classroom. And it increases the stress of every family sitting around the dinner table worrying about their kids every night when they come home from school. There should be more support. There should be higher teacher-aid-child ratios, not less. My child matters. He is a human being, not a machine. It's about the bottom line. It's not about kids, it's not about our schools, and it should be condemned.
I extend to you greetings. I extend to you greetings on behalf of 190,000 members of the Australian Education Union nationwide. And I say to all of you, give yourselves a big round of applause because you deserve it. What is it that Premier Barry O'Farrell, a Liberal Premier in New South Wales, gets that Barnett doesn't get? What is it that Premier Napthine, a Liberal Premier in Victoria, what is it that he gets that Barnett doesn't get? O'Farrell said in New South Wales that the Gonski additional funding was necessary so that every child could achieve their full potential. Barnett is taking that away from the kids in WA. Barnett is robbing our kids in WA their futures, their hopes and their aspirations, and for that he is condemned. Our message to Barnett today, our message to Tony Abbott today is simple. We will keep on campaigning. We'll keep on campaigning until we lose our voices. We'll keep on campaigning till we lose our voices, until we get the better funding model for all of our kids. Good on you, solidarity.
That the Barnett government be called to account for their cynical misrepresentation to the WA community about the needs focus of their new funding model for WA public schools, one which does not have the significant additional funds the Gonski model said is needed to enhance the educational opportunities of our children and young people. Those in favour? Those against? Any abstentions? Carried unanimously.